So I'm trying something a little new here. I think my phone has a better mic and a better camera than my laptop, so I'm going to try recording this on my phone and then uploading it to YouTube, like I've been doing. But I don't know if my phone has an automatic cutoff for timing. So anyway, that's all to say that I'm trying to do something new, work a little better. So if it sucks, just bear with me. In watching the videos on YouTube, there's that annoying in the background of all the lectures, and it was really annoying me. So, switch it up a little bit, see if I can make it better. All right, that's 42 seconds of your life you're not getting back. So, what are we doing this week? Well, this week we are moving from talking about philosophical methodology to talking specifically about philosophical views. And what we're setting up this week is what I'm calling the package deal. So, sometimes I'll also call it the package view. The word package will be in there. You'll get it, don't worry. So, what exactly do we mean by this? Well, a little bit of background. It's a view of human nature that I think we find in René Descartes. So, Descartes is a 16th century French philosopher, often called the father of modern philosophy, and it strikes me as apt because a lot of the ways in which he talks about mind and nature and free will and responsibility set the agenda for the ways in which we talk about it today. So, the package deal that I'm going to present to you this week is grounded most immediately in Descartes. Nonetheless, the view goes back to, I think, Plato, maybe even a little before. And so what we're doing is, for today, I asked you to read some chunks out of Plato's Republic, right? Namely, the two most famous things we find there, the divided line illustration and the allegory of the cave. So what we find in Plato is we find a view of reality that is amenable to the package deal that we find in Descartes. So what is the package deal? Well, I hold that there are four elements, right? That it's a view of human nature that has four components to it. So the first is that human minds are disembodied. So here's what I mean by that. That we can understand what it is to have a human mind without understanding anything about the body, right? That in a sense we can think about our mind as something that is easily separable from the bodies that we have, right? So think about the split between one's body and one's soul, right? That's a very common way to think about how minds are disembodied, right? You can understand what it is to have a mind, what it is to have a soul, without really understanding anything about how that mind or that soul is connected to the body, right? Or even what it is to have a body. That's the first one. The second one is that human beings are rational. So what I mean by this is that human beings are rational in the sense that we're governed by reason, right? That we're not primarily emotional. We're not, just chemicals swirling about inside of our noggins. That we are thoroughly rational, right? And then we'll have a lot more to say about that, but I'm hoping that that's kind of that it's intuitive enough that you get what's part of that. Third, we have that human beings are free, right? That is to say that you're not determined, right? So right now you're listening to me lecture about philosophy, that you're free to do this, right? You are free to turn off this lecture, you are free to drop out of Gonzaga, you're free to do whatever the hell you want to do. Finally, we have that human beings are asocial / agendered. Right? So what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean is that to understand what it is to be human on the package deal, the package view, doesn't necessarily involve considering any facts about the social world or any facts about one's gender, right, or one's sex. So that is to say that what it is to be human doesn't require social concepts or gender concepts. That, in a sense, we can understand what it is to be human separately from understanding how we are social or how we are socialized into specific gender roles. So again, the elements of the package deal, and I put a little blurb about this in our shared folder, is that human minds are disembodied, human beings are rational, human beings are free, and human beings are asocial/agendered. So I think these four views are endorsed by Descartes, and I think that we can also find echoes of these views in Plato. But why I'm interested in you reading Plato is to set up for Descartes, right? To see where some of these ideas are coming from. So let's now turn to Plato. So in Plato, so what you read for today is you read those two chunks out of the Republic. So they come from the end of Republic 6, the beginning of Republic 7. So what do we find in there? Well, in a sense, I should apologize because you're thrown into some pretty hardcore Platonic metaphysics without any background, but that's okay. You're all smart people. You'll swim. So what we find in there is we find Plato's sort of a compact view of Plato's views about knowledge and Plato's views about reality. And these two things are intimately related to one another. So let's first talk about Plato's view of reality, right? So that we'll go from reality to knowledge of reality. So what exactly is reality? Well, kind of a big philosophical question. Now, for Plato, and I think for a lot of philosophers, it's sort of influenced by Plato, what is most real is what is unchanging. Again, what is most real is what is unchanging. So you ask yourself, what's unchanging? Well, let's start with things around us. For example, I have a lovely plant right here. It has flowers. I've actually managed to keep this plant alive for about a year. My wife and kids gave it to me, like a year and a half ago. So I've managed to keep it alive that long. But flowers bloom, they die, I've had to trim off little bits of it. I went away on vacation for about 2 weeks and it was near dead. But when I gave it some water, it sprang back to life. So plants change, right? So this thing right here, this thing is not, well, it's not really real for Plato because it's constantly changing, right? It's growing, it's dying, it's doing all sorts of things. Well, okay, so plants are out, right? What about people, right? Are people changing? Well, I mean, obviously we are, right? I'm not the same person today that I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, right? So, people aren't proper objects of knowledge, right? We're not most real. I've got my keys here, right? I mean, so my keys are made out of metal, but that too changes, right? If I happen to break a key, or in hundreds of years when the metal's sort of gotten really thin, the keys can break. So those keys right there, these objects that I'm touching with my fingers right now, these aren't really real. So what is real then? Well, what's real is what is unchanging, right? What is permanent, what is stable. For Plato, he argues that there are these entities called forms, right? The Greek transliteration of the term is like eidos, E-I-D-O-S, and those are sometimes called ideas, right? So Platonic forms, you'll also hear Platonic ideas. So what these are abstract objects that exist outside of space and time, right? They are sources of knowledge, they are sources of value and identity. They are invisible, but they are intelligible. And importantly, they are eternal and unchanging. Weird idea, but not quite so weird, I think, if we put it into the context that St. Augustine does, right? So we don't read St. Augustine, but I think St. Augustine gives us a nice spin on this. So St. Augustine describes these forms as ideas in the mind of God, right? So the forms for Plato and for Augustine are like a blueprint of reality, right? They are it's like the perfect idealized version of reality, right? It's the world upon which our concrete world is patterned. Right? So, for example, Right, I have 2 coffee cups here. Right? Now I won't turn them over because one is full of water, one is full of coffee. But each one has a circle on the bottom, right? The bottom of each one is something of a cylinder, or is a circle, right? Now, neither one of these is a perfect circle. There are going to be little blips, little imperfections there, right? It will not be the case for either one of these cups, right? That for the circle on the bottom, that the points on the edges are equidistant from the point in the center, right? They're always going to be a little bit further away or a little bit closer than others, right? So it's not a perfect circle. But nonetheless, we can recognize these things as circles, right? So the question is if this isn't a perfect circle, then what is it that makes it as circular as it can be, right? Or another way of putting the question, to shift into a knowledge mode here, how do I recognize this as a circle if it's not actually a circle? Well, Plato's view is that there are these eternal objects, right? These forms, right? And one of the forms is the form of circle. So what the form of circle is it's like this idealized version of a circle, right? A perfect circle. And circular objects are circular because they participate in the form of circle, right? This perfect circle. Now, Plato uses this language of participation, and he doesn't really clarify it for us. He just sort of says, well, participation, it's kind of a sticky topic. Look over there! Squirrel! Sorry. I get carried away sometimes. So he doesn't really explain what it means for an object to participate in a form, right? But it's some kind of relationship, right? So perhaps the relationship that I might bear to my soul, objects might bear to their forms, maybe. But in any case, circular objects participate in this form of circle, right? This perfect circle. And that's what makes circular objects what they are, right? And it's what allows me to recognize non-circular objects as sort of approaching the perfect circle, right? I can recognize some things as more circular than others, right? So for example, I've got here a bottle cap, right? And I've got here my wedding ring. So the bottle cap, I can tell you, is a less perfect circle than my wedding ring. Why? Well, because as I trace my finger around the edge of the bottle cap, I can feel little imperfections, right? Little bits of plastic from where it was attached to the plastic bottle. But with my ring, right, there's little blips on the edge, right? But nonetheless, if I look really closely, I can see that it's dinged up, right? Because, well, I've had it for a long-ass time. And so it too isn't a perfect circle, but I recognize my ring as a more perfect circle than the bottle cap. So I recognize, in a sense, greater and lesser degrees of perfection when it comes to circularity. And so what all circular objects, in a sense, are compared against, right? The yardstick for circularity is this perfect circle, right? This form of circle. So Plato's worldview then is that we have a realm of forms, sort of like I mean, some people describe it as a Platonic heaven, right? Which I think is a nice image here, right? It's an image of an intelligible realm that's distinct from the realm that we live in. Right? We have the realm of forms, the intelligible realm, which exists outside of space and time. And then we have the concrete, physical realm that we live in. Right? So what we find in Plato is a bifurcation of reality, right? A splitting of reality into the perfect, the unchanging, the eternal, and the imperfect, the changing, the temporary. So what we're going to do in the next lecture is we're going to take this bifurcation, right? This sort of the splitting of reality into the perfect, intelligible, and imperfect, unintelligible. We're going to take that and we're going to see how he represents this division of reality by means of the divided line illustration and the allegory of the cave.